Okay, so here's
There,
part 3.
time to talk about your
other
mini
new
analysis.
thing you're going to be doing is
Rough
creating
draft is
a
due on
worksite.
Friday.
So
You're going to find sources.
So
what exactly
mini
is
analysis
your
using a
essay?
database?
Well,
I'm going to put
this
this
down
list
into
of the sources that
three
you
separate
want. So in
videos.
this case,
I don't
it's
trust
list
Google on my end.
one
If I were to
source
type
that you are
in
putting
COVID-19,
you literally
so
open a
the first step you have to
just
search
your
is
essay.
thousands of
Type works cited
Well, it's a
in
2 or 3
thousands of
page
pages.
essay,
And
and half of
then
them I
you
don't
just
even know.
have to type all of the
It could be a
information
doctor,
about your author
something that's a
and
little
could be
bit
my
more
drunk
neighbor
neighbor
industry.
I have no publishing information, which can be rather tedious,
Seconds,
but
but
I'm going
everything
to
in
show
my
you
database has been
a
purely
nice
short.
and we'll give you
That means
practice
experts
for
are rating it
first of all,
outside
this is what
article.
that's
decided
the
yeah,
works
that's a good
cited sheet
article
looked
to
like
use
from a young lady who
someone
just
just last
showed
but not
you
least your
example.
tuition
Here's some
paragraph
information
and
she's
they're very expensive yearly subscription,
and you're going to put some of that
why
students
into
high school
your
don't have
ranks,
access
into
to
your
Mentors
essay.
for America.
You're going to use
very
magazine,
expensive.
we'll call it
Commonweal.
an
I think that's Canadian.
source,
Back in
and put some
1997.
how do you find articles
Well,
from
then,
that source?
she
into
found
your
it
essay?
academic
Simple
one
point
file,
ideas.
which was the
First of all,
same
you're going to start.
database
So what
I was
topic is going to
showing
work
you?
best?
And
First and foremost,
she literally was working on this paper.
Doesn't
back in
interest you to begin
2011.
with.
April.
Underneath the
Going to
picture, you're going to
very
see something
very
very
Then she listed two more sources
topics that you can
paper
actually
that
analyze.
I'm
Something
my
my computer's not exactly flying
That could be
today.
a
For
lot
instance,
of
I'm
times
interested these days
really cool
in
here.
the idea of
When
wearing
you
masks.
found
I was
an
already in
article
this
that
COVID-19. I find it kind of surprising that I can go to some areas of a city and there are 100% of people wearing masks.
All you have to do
and I can travel maybe 5 miles and
some of them
hardly anybody wearing masks. It varies a lot, and I wonder in my own mind why this is. I like to use.
So this would make a pretty good
topic
class
because first of all, there are at least 2 sides to the issue.
If you get someone really old like me that's
answered
I'm
my
using Chicago, which is
I'm sure you're interested in
ever.
SEC student.
And last but not least, I'm pretty certain I'm going to be able to find. We use MLA, and it's already defaults to that. So all you have to do tons of people you're writing about this issue is don't use cited. So it's going to be pretty easy for me to find an article source information directly from the database. So where can you find a good topic?
One nice
well, I'm going to suggest you try your free writes. Favorite, the main reason show you do that.
Go through your free writes and
Why?
look at
Because
topics
sometimes you're
that
typing a
you
paper
really
about
can't remember
that
all
are
the silly little rules
interesting
that
to
involve
you.
this. B,
Or if you're in another class,
seem to be something you can actually analyze. Generally, they have
just Google.
This looks like a normal Google search bar.
Pretty sure you're going to be able to find something which is
online
writing lab.
One of my favorite ones would be the
scrolling down free write
where I ask
like
you to
Google
look at
bars
odd or unusual
and
things that
and
people
put
do.
in
I don't know why that sticks out in my
Chicago,
mind, but I
so
think
we're going to look for the Chicago guide.
If I want to find something,
what
is the best way to find a source?
19 in mass,
Well,
but
your
it has
best
everything
choice
you
for this
possibly
would
want to
be
know about
using
MLA
a
and
database. If you're not
And I'd hit the
familiar
search
with
button.
that,
well,
well, then stay tuned because in the second video, I'm going to show you
Look
exactly
through its
what a database
and find
is,
out
every
about
article,
everything you really
COVID-19,
need to know.
those
For
two
instance,
words
if you
show
wanted
up
to
again.
look
Well, guess what?
at
There
what
are
a works cited page
7,178
looks like,
articles.
they have that here.
They call them
So
journals
this is
here.
very
That's the
familiar
fancy word
because
for
it's gonna
magazines
look
in
a
the
lot
college
like the
world.
young ladies,
There are
worksite
7,178
sheet
different
that showed you
articles.
the PowerPoint earlier.
I don't
See right
have
here?
that much time on my
Pretty much the
hands,
same
so
thing.
I'm going back.
So,
Sorry, you have to start all
I
over
like
again.
Purdue Owl
And
so
I'll put
much
COVID-19
that
again.
I have a link to it for you. It's
And
always
then
been on
of
our
course, I was talking about masks.
page of our
right?
class
So I'm
on
gonna put
Blackboard on the
mask
left-hand
here.
side where you have announcements and assignments and syllabus.
I bet I won't have
There's an area
7,000
called resources. If you click on that,
I have
a direct link
78
to
of them. So
Purdue
that's
Owl
narrowed it down
right
quite
there
a
for you.
bit. But I
So
still don't
that's
really
it.
feel like reading 78 articles.
Again,
trying
since
to get
it's
through
a short essay,
So I'm gonna start
be
over
rating
again.
on 3
COVID-19.
That's it. I won't even create a rubric.
The
'cause
first
it's gonna be
line,
so simple.
second line, I'm
Number
gonna write
one
the
is
mask.
2 to
And
3
again, I'm just
pages
telling
long
this
following MLA
database.
style.
I want you to look for
And you
these
already
words
have
in
mastered
the
that, most of you.
Well, I'm
Just
kind of
doing
curious
the
about
MLA stuff.
like
Your
how it
narrative
changes
essay.
from state to
Now you
state,
just have to do the
because
works
not every
sheet
state
and
is the same. So I'm going to put
incorporate a
law.
The second thing will be the
I'm gonna
fact
hit
that it's
search.
actually
By the way,
analyzing
when you were
something.
doing your, I think it was module 2,
The
could have been
third
3, but I think it was
thing
2. We talked
will
about
be-
keywords.
Oh my
That's
gosh,
what
I
that was
just
all
got a brain
about. That's
fart.
why we have you do those modules, so you get comfortable with coming up with good
the
keywords
third
to
thing
put
will
into
be
databases like this.
using
Look
MLA.
look what's happened here. I'm down to 4
Oh yeah,
articles.
you've actually
Now that I can
incorporated
handle.
an outside
Earlier, I
source.
found this
Again,
one.
I'm
It made me
gonna ask
kind
you
of
to
chuckle.
try your
Passenger
best to
removed
use
from
a
U.S.
database.
flights for not complying with COVID-19 precautions
everything you
of
can
wearing
find
a
on
mask.
Google
Someone got
is
kicked
very
off a plane.
questionable.
I'm
Okay?
interested.
So if you have
So I'm
any
gonna click on
questions,
that.
please
That's
do
the title
not
of the article.
hesitate to reach out to me.
Up will pop the article. Sometimes they're really big.
This one's tiny. This is a really small article. But I thought this right here was very interesting. Currently, there's no U.S. law requiring travelers to wear face masks on planes. But airlines are allowed to enforce their own policies. Since I like that, you know what I can do? I can highlight it. I can even leave notes down here. I can save that for later, so when I go back in here, I can remember, oh, that was a really cool idea. So that's a piece of information that might end up in my essay. So that's how to find an article in a database. What do you do with it? Well, you can read it, of course. You can highlight it or take notes, and then begin drafting your essay. Don't really worry about what you've read necessarily. Just start writing about, in my case, COVID-19 and people wearing masks and not wearing masks. At some point, find a place in your essay where there's something in the article, like that thing I highlighted, that will support it. And you're going to put that into your essay. Here's an example from a young lady in English 101 from several years ago. This wasn't a larger essay, but she created this paragraph that you're looking at, and the yellow sentence is something that she borrowed. She borrowed a sentence from somebody named Doble because she has put the author's last name at the end here, inside a parentheses, to give that person credit. That's called parenthetical documentation. So let's discuss what that actually means. First, let's look at documentation. You've borrowed an idea from someone who's published an article. When you borrow something, you need to give that person credit by including his or her name. You are documenting the fact that you've borrowed from someone. And parenthetical is a word that comes from the word parentheses. You put the person's name in parentheses at the end of the idea you borrowed and put it into your essay. It always goes right before the period. So let me back up. You give Doble credit because you borrowed from Doble, but you always put it right at the end of the sentence. If you don't do that, you've plagiarized. You've heard of that term before, and plagiarism will get you into big, deep doo-doo with me and the dean's office and the college. You don't want to do that. So every time you borrow from someone, you need to give that individual credit by parenthetical documentation, by giving that person's name at the end of the sentence in parentheses that says, hey, this was not my idea. I found this idea in an article, probably in a database, and I'm giving this person credit. And that's a very legal thing. So how many are you going to do in your essay? Probably one. In other words, in that 2 to 3 page essay, if you borrow just one thing and put it into your essay, you're good. If you want to do 2 or 3, that's fine. Beyond 3, that's way too much for an essay of this size. Some of you might find 2 articles that you really like. Well, if you want to do a quote from one of them and a quote from another one of them, that's fine. Just don't overdo it in an essay this size. Okay, I'm going to cut this short because the video is getting a little bit longer and I don't want to upset YouTube. So I'll finish this off in part 3 later on.